Honored at PS 191 to have a visit of Doris Orgel, the author of We Goddesses and of many other books, which we have here in our library. She'll be speaking to you today about We Goddesses. This is part of New York is Book Country on Sunday. If any of you have time to walk over to Fifth Avenue, you can go and see a lot of exhibits of books and see a lot of new books, get bookmarks and posters. But today is a very, very special day here because Doris Orgel is here right in our very school to speak with us about her new book. So let's welcome Doris Orgel.
Thanks very much. And hi. I'm going to talk a little bit about this book. Some of you have seen it and maybe seen some of the pictures. I just want to say one thing about it before we start. There's a lot I want to happen this morning. It's the only book in which the goddesses, three very important goddesses from ancient times, tell their own stories in their own voices. So it's more like if you're reading a novel, you know, and you really get to know the characters. It isn't just one little story about some gods and goddesses after another. So I hope you're going to read it. Today, this is what today is all about. Anybody know what this is? All right. What? Right, and I made it myself with my own little hands. It's very golden and very glittery, and there's a real apple in it. But please don't anybody take a bite of it because it's loaded with glitter and nail polish and stuff you would not want to taste. Okay, so anyway, in the book, the goddesses tell their own stories from way back when, and they never die. You do know that. Now, I want to ask two questions. The first one is to the girls, since it's a goddess book, but don't worry, they're boys. There's also gods in it, and there'll be, you know, things that you want to read about. Okay, girls, I'm going to get 3 answers, because that's all we have time for. I want to know, if you had your choice of any goddess, let's say Greek ones from that kind of mythology, that you could be, which one would you want to be? I'm going to take 3 because we don't have too much time. Yeah. Which one? You?
Me?
Yes.
Hera.
Because?
Because Zeus and Hera.
Are the most powerful by any chance?
Yes.
Yes. And because she's the goddess of marriage? Okay.
Aphrodite.
Because?
Because she's the goddess of love.
That's a wonderful answer.
The same reason as Aphrodite.
The same one, ditto. All right, okay. And this is to the boys. If you could choose any god that you'd want to be, and why?
Zeus.
Because?
He's powerful.
He's the biggest. Yeah.
Zeus.
Zeus also. Because
He's a king.
he's king of everybody. Anyone else?
Zeus because he can make anything happen. Something.
Yeah, you know, maybe when you read some more mythology, you'll get ideas about the other gods who also are powerful and who can make really very interesting things happen. But, you know, I hope that reading about these goddesses and gods is going to make you want to go on and read more mythology. Okay, what I want to do this morning with you guys, and it's going to be on television too, I'm going to tell you the story of the golden apple. How many of you know it? So, great, we've got a head start. I'm going to go over it and tell it again and outline who all is in it, who the gods and goddesses and humans are who play parts in that story. And I want you to listen really hard because we're going to act it out. We're going to make it into a play, like improv at PS 191 on Friday morning. So listen carefully, okay? Because you guys are going to be the actors, and not everybody can have featured roles, but whoever isn't the star in this play will be a wedding guest, because it all takes place at a wedding, and afterwards there'll be some prizes, so there should be something in it for everybody, okay? So here's who all is in it. First, King Peleus. He's a mortal, he's a human, he's not a god. And he's a very good king, everybody likes him, and it's his wedding day. Who's he marrying? He's marrying a sea goddess. Her name is Thetis. She's very, very pretty. She's got silver feet, not that that is going to be visible in the play. And she actually doesn't have very much to do in the play, but she is the bride, so just remember that. And she was very hard to get. Well, I won't go into that. If we have time later, you can ask me how King Peleus captured her. She changed into about 60 different shapes and forms of different animals, and he just had to grab her and hold on no matter how much she changed her shape. And if he really held on through all of that, then she was his. That's what happened. That's not part of this story. Okay, so far we have Peleus, Thetis. Then there's Zeus. Everybody knows who he is, right? Now, the three goddesses in my book. Athena. She's Zeus's favorite daughter and very smart. She's the goddess of wisdom and of war. Also, this is important. Please remember, she's beautiful. Almost all the goddesses are beautiful. And she's vain. Know what I mean? She's very proud of her looks and wants to be admired. All goddesses are vain. Next, there's Aphrodite. We know about her. She's goddess of everything that has to do with romance and falling in love. She insists that everybody in the world should recognize that she's the most beautiful. She's perfection. She's also very vain. Then there's Hera, Zeus's wife, the queen of gods and goddesses. And please excuse me if in the future, instead of saying gods and goddesses, which is a very big mouthful, I say the G's and G's. I call them that to myself. She's proud, she's majestic, she's beautiful, and what else?
She's god of marriage.
She's goddess of marriage, right? And you know, there's a tradition, people believe that before Zeus and she were married, no gods or goddesses or anybody in the world was ever married. They had the first marriage ceremony in the world, and that's in the book too. But what I want you to notice here is she's also very vain, because all goddesses are. Then there's Eris. Anybody know from the story? Yes.
He argues a lot. He's the goddess of
Yeah.
quarrel.
She's the goddess of quarrels and fight. She's actually the. Some people believe she's the twin sister of the god of war, Eris. She's very, very bad. Just remember about that. She makes trouble. She loves to make trouble. She loves it when people fight and have terrible scenes. And she's the kind of character that everyone loves to boo when she comes on. So you could do that, not too loud. Then there's Zeus's eagle. He's a giant bird who does things Zeus wants done. He'll grab the apple in his claws in the play and he'll carry it away. Then there's Paris, not the city in France, but he's a young shepherd. Actually, he's also a prince, and we're not going to probably have time to discuss what he's the prince of, but later when you think more about this story, you remember to find out who Paris really is and what he's the prince of, because it'll be important. Anyway, he doesn't come on until the second act of this quick play, and he'll be the judge of who's the fairest. Lastly, there's Hermes. Anybody know who he is? Hermes has a wonderful broad-brimmed hat, and he has sandals with wings on them.
The messenger.
Absolutely. He's the messenger god, and he flies around a lot and tells gods and goddesses where they're supposed to show up next. And he's going to make sure that the three goddesses get to the judgment, because Paris, this shepherd prince, is going to be their judge. Okay. And please remember about this. This is what it's all about. It's the golden apple, and written on it is... Absolutely. Okay. So this is the story, which repeats a lot of what I've just said. King Peleus and Thetis are getting married. He's a human, she's a goddess. It's an outdoor wedding. Pretend we're on the flowery, summery slope of a mountain, Mount Pelion in Greece. Everybody is invited. Everybody except one. Anybody know who? Please raise your hand if you have the answer. Who has the? I know you do. Who else does? Who knows for sure?
Eris.
Absolutely. Eris is not invited because, you know, the people who made out the gods who made out the invitation didn't want the wedding to be spoiled, didn't want any trouble. Eris rants and rages, "Where's my invitation?" She makes awful faces. "I'll show them. I'll ruin that wedding. I'll make so much trouble it'll never end." Okay, the wedding guests are having fun. Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera sit together, chatting, very friendly. Suddenly, guess who comes barging in, although she's not invited? Eris. "I brought you a present," she says sweetly, not telling who she means by you. And she rolls the golden apple to where the three of them are sitting. Well, it says to the fairest. So naturally, all three of them, Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera, reach for it. And they tussle and they grapple. It looks like there's going to be a terrible fight. But suddenly the bridegroom, King Peleus, comes dashing over. He doesn't want their quarreling to spoil his wedding day. Quick, he grabs the apple away and brings it to Zeus. "Father, husband, listen," Athena and Hera yell at the top of their voices, in ancient Greek, of course. "I deserve it. No, I do. Give it to me. No, to me." Aphrodite says just to herself, "How can anybody even doubt that the apple should be mine?" She's the maddest of them all. Zeus is in big trouble. Two of these goddesses are his daughters. Aphrodite, you know, not by birth, but he adopted her. And the third is his wife. How can he be impartial? No matter to whom he awards the apple, the other two will be furious with him. So here's what he does. He calls to his eagle. "Eagle, come on down, I need you." The eagle, it's enormous. It's bigger than the roof of this house that you're sitting in. Way bigger, maybe twice as big. He swoops down. Zeus says, "Eagle, grab that apple. Fly it to your nest and keep it safe till further instructions." Or words to that effect. I mean, when you guys act out this play, you know, you're not going to say the words just like I'm telling you now. Anyway, the eagle grabs it, flies up and away. Zeus tells the three goddesses, "In time, I will appoint a judge who can be truly impartial." Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera aren't happy, but they stop quarreling. Eris slinks away, but she's smiling to herself because she knows the trouble's just begun. That's the end of Act 1. Now we have Act 2. It's later. Nobody knows how much later, maybe 100 years, maybe 1,000 years, maybe longer, because the reason for that is gods and goddesses don't keep track of time the way humans do, because they have forever. They don't get old, they don't die, so it doesn't matter to them how much time goes by. Except that Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera are still brooding about that golden apple. Each one thinks more than ever that she deserves it. Finally, at long last, Zeus appoints a judge. Hermes, the messenger god, tells the news to the three goddesses and tells them to show up at Mount Ida, or he brings them there. We'll see. You know, they can fly through the air. Aphrodite has a chariot pulled by doves that pulls her along. Hera sometimes rides in a chariot that's pulled by peacocks because they can't really fly, but she can give them that ability. And Athena just wills herself to go wherever she wants. So anyway, it's Hermes' job to bring them, to make sure they get to Mount Ida. Okay, and Paris is the judge. He's sitting there with his shepherd staff, and the sheep are around, and he thinks, oh, they're all so beautiful. In the book, they're naked, by the way, but don't worry. The girls who are those goddesses are allowed to keep their clothes on. All the goddesses now whisper things in Paris's ear to make him, you know, give them the golden apple. Athena promises, if you give it to me, I'll make you victorious, I'll make you win every war you're ever in. Hera says, give it to me, I'll make you the most powerful king in the world. Except for Zeus, of course. Aphrodite says, well, if you give it to me, I can assure you that you will win the love of the most beautiful woman in the world. And actually, that's as far as I've outlined it. We may not get any further in the play because I want us to have time, because you're now going to draw lots and pick your roles. Remember, everybody who doesn't get a name role is a wedding guest. And you just sit there and pretend that you're drinking nectar, which makes you immortal, and eating ambrosia, which is the most delicious thing, and you know, and you'll have your surprise later. So let's go and draw some lots, or should we pass it, or?
Pass it around. We'll have a female eagle, okay?
Oh, okay,
Switch
fine.
the
A
gender
female
of the
eagle, a she-eagle.
Okay.
All right. Absolutely.
Girls pick a pink paper and boys pick a blue one, okay? Take.
And open it up and read it. Okay, do we have a boy who didn't get a name part? Do we have a wedding guest boy? No. We're really short of boys here. Could I have one of the boys who is playing a role just for a minute? I want somebody to improvise a little music. Let's say Apollo, who's a big deal god, plays his lyre. So if any boy feels like standing up and humming us a little music, that'll make a good opening. Do I have a volunteer? If not, forget it. Okay. All right. The wedding guests, you're all having fun and drinking nectar and snacking on ambrosia. Action. Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera. Where are you? Come on. Go sit together right there and act like you're the best on the floor. And you have a lot to, you whisper to each other, you're smiling at each other, and you have a lot to say to each other. You don't have to say it out loud because there's no lines here. Okay, where's Eris? Eris? Eris. Come here, Eris. You're very, very mad. You're making terrible faces. And you stand somewhere where you can easily sort of bowl that ball over where it goes straight at them, and you say, yeah, get down on the floor, and you say, I brought you a present, or words to that effect. You got to say it. Let's hear it. You have to say something like, I've got a wonderful surprise for you, and you don't tell who the you is.
I have a wonderful surprise for you.
All of you get into it. Get into it really hard now. Peleus, get ready. You got to go grab it before the... No, you have to tussle. Nobody can get it. You have to really fight over it. Peleus, go get it really fast. You're the bridegroom. Oh, where's Thetis? Thetis has to sit next to Peleus and be the bride. So when you... Okay, you go... You got it? Quick. Go bring it to Zeus and say, keep this so it won't make any more trouble. Who's Zeus? Zeus. Hurry up, quick, fast. Thetis, you have to sit next to Peleus, you're his bride. Okay, Zeus, where's Zeus? All right, you could stand, because that way the eagle is going to, Okay, Aphrodite, you don't do this, but Athena and Hera, I want you yelling. You go over to Zeus and start giving him a really hard time. I need that apple. I'm the fairest. No, me. Give it to me. I'm your favorite dog. Go ahead. You do it. This is a play. Everybody's got to get into it. I want to hear those lines, okay? Zeus, father, give it to me.
Zeus, father, give it to me. No, me. I'm the fairest. I am.
Louder.
I'm the fairest.
And
I
you,
am.
and you say, oh my, what am I going to do? You know.
What am I going to do?
And you say, this is ridiculous. How could anybody question that I'm the most beautiful thing, goddess in the entire universe? Let's hear it. But you don't. You could just stay, by yourself because you're smoldering with wrath and rage.
I forgot what you said.
And you say, I'm the most beautiful. How can anybody even doubt it?
I'm the most beautiful. So how can anybody doubt it?
Okay, so what happens next? I seem to be missing a page here. Zeus, I think you better call your eagle.
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 Put it in your nest.
Zeus, you can do a whole little speech about what am I going to do? 2 of them are my daughters, 1 is my wife. They're all going to give me a really hard time if I give it to them. They're all so gorgeous besides. Go ahead, let's hear a little speech. Yeah, you're holding it. Yeah, all right.
What I'm going to do, there's 3 people and they're going to get mad if I give it away to just one of them.
Right, so you get this great idea. I mean, what have you got your eagle for? Eagle, come get this.
Eagle, come get this.
And the eagle comes swooping down with big, mighty wing flaps from the top of the sky and takes the apple in her talons. You know what talons are? Claws. Yeah. And flies off to her eagle's nest and keeps it there. All right. Oh, good eagle. Okay. So then Zeus tells all 3 goddesses, cool it, I don't want you fighting. I'm going to appoint the judge, one who'll be really impartial, not your father and not your husband. So make up something like that. We want to.
I'm not going to give it to you now. I'm going to make a judge decide who's going to get the apple.
And don't ask me when, because it could take 100 years or more.
It will take 100 years or more.
Okay. All right. Now we need Eris to slink away. And where's Eris? And she could say, you guys don't know how much trouble you are in for. You leave the party. You just go and you make a little speech to yourself about how much trouble you have caused. Do it. You can do it. All right, if you don't want to, that's okay too. We'll just go around then and have a big smile on your face. That'll do it. Like,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, she's doing it. She's all malicious. She knows the world is not going to.
Wicked laugh.
And wicked. Good. Can you do that? Okay, well, we've heard a wicked laugh anyway. I like that. They don't know how much trouble this world is in for. Okay, that's the end of Act 1, and we'll have some applause. And then there's Act 2, and not that much happens in Act 2. But Hermes, oh, have you got a question? No, Hermes. Okay, you got, hello Hermes, you look like Hermes a little bit. You go to each of the goddesses and you tell them, Zeus has appointed a judge at last, and you must appear on Mount Ida to be judged. He's going to have the judgment of who's the fairest goddess. Okay, you go to Hera first, because she's the queen. Well, make it up as you go along. You're Hermes, the messenger god. And your job is to tell all the goddesses, the 3 goddesses who all want the golden apple, to appear on Mount Ida, which is a big mountain in Greece. And they, because there'll be a judge there who's gonna judge them. Okay? So you can put it in your own words. Go to Hera first. Oh, well, just say there'll be a judgment on Mount Ida. Please be there and look your best.
There'll be a judgment on Mount Ida. Please be your best.
And be there, right, okay. She's gonna come. You could say, yes, I will be there in all my majesty and glory. Or something.
Yes, I will be there in all my majesty and glorious.
And say some stuff like that to the others.
Same thing.
If you want, or you could change it around a little bit. Athena next and Aphrodite last. Athena. There'll be a judgment on Mount Ida.
There'll be a judgment on Mount Ida. Please be your best and be there.
And
Yes, I will be there.
I will will myself to appear there in my splendid beauty and glory. And Aphrodite last.
There will be a judgment on Mount Ida. Please be there and be your best.
And you could say, at last, I've been waiting for this for so long, you know.
At last, I'll be waiting there. I'll be.
Whatever. You know, whatever you feel, this is improv. You know, you've been sitting there smoldering that you didn't get the award, and now it's your turn, and you're just really happy, and you're going to be there. You know, you could say something to that effect.
I'm
or
going to
not.
be there.
Okay, Paris, where's Paris? Paris, you sit on that chair, and you have the eagle has brought you the golden apple. Where's the eagle, bud? The eagle, go fly and bring the golden apple, and make sure that Paris gets it. And he's going to sit there and he's waiting for those goddesses. He's really excited. Thank you. Okay, goddesses, fly to Mount Ida, or else ride there in your chariots drawn by doves or peacocks. Go ahead, any way you can get there. And you stand before Paris, and you wonder, he seems like a simple shepherd boy, and yet Aphrodite especially senses something very special about him. He is not only a shepherd herding his sheep, he is of noble blood, and possibly a prince, and we're going to talk about that later, maybe. And he says, I am to judge, Zeus has commanded me to judge which one of you is fairest. You could say something like that. Do you feel comfortable with that? All right, say it.
Zeus has commanded me to judge who's the fairest.
Okay, very good. Now, each of the goddesses does a little, like a fashion show in front of him. You just sort of turn around and let him see all your beauty backwards and forwards. Okay? Athena first, Hera next. No, Hera first, Athena second, Aphrodite last. The others, give her a little room. Yeah, Hera. Turn around, do a little, yes. That's beautiful. Boy, that's terrific. Okay, next. Okay. Yeah. And Aphrodite comes on, and she's very sure of herself and looks very aloof. But she notices that Hera is whispering in Paris's ear. So Hera, whisper in Paris's ear loud so we can hear it too. Where are you? Do it. You have to offer him something. You're the powerful goddess. You're offering him. Yeah, but say it out loud so the rest of us can hear it.
Queen of goddesses.
And I will make you powerful and mighty.
And I will make you powerful and mighty.
You think about it very hard because it's a tempting offer. And Athena, remember you're the goddess of war also, in addition to being very wise. And you promise him victory in his other ear. Okay, let's hear that. Yeah, Athena. You're Athena.
Athena, goddess of wisdom and war. I think I am the fairest.
And if you think so too, I'll make it worthwhile. You're supposed to be bribing him. I'll make you victorious in war.
I'll make you victorious in war.
Okay, Aphrodite, get into it. Tell him what you can make happen.
Aphrodite, goddess of love. I am the fairest. If you could, I will promise you love.
No, the most beautiful woman in the world. And
Goddess of the world.
no, she's not a goddess. She's a woman. That's all right. We get the idea. And after that, I think the story goes on, you know, because Paris, oh yeah, Paris, I'm sorry, those glitter things just brush right off later, don't worry about it. Paris, get up and make your judgment, and whoever does it, and award the apple to the fairest, and the other goddesses could be pretty upset about it. Okay, Paris, I judge you the fairest, or something like that.
I judge you the fairest Aphrodite.
Okay, the others.
You should have picked me. I'm the fairest.
You're right. All right, we're going to leave the play here because we're going to be out of time, but I'll tell you, this, you know, you've just got an inkling of it now. This is one of the most lasting, people have been telling this story for literally 3,000 years, and two of the greatest books that some people think were ever written have to do with this story. They're by a blind poet from ancient Greece whose name was Homer. He wrote the Iliad, which you're surely going to be studying at some point in your school, and the Odyssey. This story led to this famous old war in which human beings fought and all the gods and goddesses got into it. And Homer wrote this incredibly wonderful, exciting war book about it with all the fighting and all the ships and all the swords and all the armor. And it's called, anybody know what it's called? It's called the Iliad. Sometime, maybe next year or the year after, you're going to be reading about it. Because Paris was really a prince of Troy. And he went and he fell in love with the most beautiful woman in the whole world. Her name was Helen. She was already married to a king. Right, exactly. Menelaus, king of Sparta, which was a kingdom in ancient Greece. And he was off on a trip, and when he came back, Paris had come and taken his wife, Helen, who'd fallen in love with Paris, away with him to Troy. And Menelaus...
And then they ran away, and they had fighting a war for more, like 9 years, and then they did 10 years.
Yeah, but you know a lot about it. Yes, because Menelaus was so mad, he got all the other kings of little kingdoms throughout ancient Greece to come and fight for him, and they went and fought with Troy for 10 years, and it was terrible, but it was also very exciting, and it was kind of the beginning. Some people think it was kind of the beginning of history, when historians started writing history. And some people do believe that it actually happened. Anyway, you can be reading more about this, or if you want to, you know, now that you've tried the play a little bit, I realize it's very hard to suddenly do a play, you know, of this kind of story. But now that you started to, you may think a little bit more about the parts that you were playing, and you may want to do it a little more, again, when you're more comfortable in your parts, more informally when you're by yourselves or when you're in library or with your teachers. You know, I hope that it's given you some ideas about ancient Greece and mythology and gods and goddesses and the wonder of that. So please.
Can I ask you some questions?
Please, that's what I'm just going to say. Please ask me questions, and I hope I can answer them. Okay. Who hasn't had a chance to do? I haven't. We have time for all of them.
Have you written any other books about mythology?
Yes, I have. It's funny you should ask. I have written a book called The Princess and the God, which is here. It's the story of Cupid and Psyche, and it's also written in the first person from Psyche. Psyche is a human princess, and she falls in love with this god, and it's a little bit like Sleeping Beauty, and yes, and then I also did a television thing about Pegasus. Oh, what? Everybody. Okay.
Who inspired you to write mythology?
That when I was working, I had a job, and my boss said, you know, he had a request from somebody in television who wanted me to write a script for Pegasus, and then I suddenly remembered that when I was a kid, I loved nothing better than mythology, and I adored Pegasus. So I did that, and I thought, this is so much fun. I want to do more of it. So it's that guy from television, or my boss, who said, do this. Zeus, please. Yes.
Do you have a trouble writing the book?
Did I have trouble? Oh, did I have trouble? It took me forever. It's a very, very difficult book to write because, you know, all this stuff is from very, very long ago, and it's what's known as classical. And so I wanted to convey that, but I also wanted kids now to be able to enjoy it. So I had to find, you know, the right kind of language, and then suddenly I started hearing it in poetry in my head. So all the sentences, I don't know if you'll ever notice this, but in this book, all the sentences have a certain rhythm. If you read it out loud, you'll hear it. So it took me forever, and then we had to fit in all the information and the introduction. Yes, it was very hard, but I loved every minute of it. I'm looking for people who haven't, that I haven't heard from.
What do you like about the three goddesses, and which is your favorite?
Oh, I just love them. You know, when I was a kid, I just sort of fell in love with them because they're all so beautiful and because they can do so much. You know, they're so powerful, they make things happen. When I was a kid, almost as long ago as in ancient Greece, things were very different. You know, girls couldn't do very much at all. And there weren't any books called goddesses. It's always gods and heroes. You had to look really hard for footnotes and little paragraphs in which they were goddesses. So I liked the idea that they were beautiful and that they were sure of themselves and they had power to make things happen. They were like good role models. And I don't know who, I think my favorite was Athena, because not so much that she was the goddess of war, but I knew that I wasn't pretty or anything when I was a kid, and people told me I was smart. So I thought, you know, well, that's good too. So I think Athena was my favorite.
Athena was my favorite too. But did you illustrate the pictures too?
No, I can't draw at all. I can make golden apples, but I can't draw. A wonderful artist named Marilee Heyer did these really gorgeous, beautiful paintings, and she did a lot of research in libraries and got a lot of the Greek details. I want to tell you one funny thing, though, about the first. When you look at this book, the first big painting in it is of Athena with her owl and with the muses. Remember how many muses there are? There are 9 muses. They're goddesses of history and art and dance and all. And if you look, and when the book was all finished, I looked at that picture, and it's Athena and the muses, and guess what? There's only 8. It's a secret. Don't tell anyone. One's missing. No, but you know, and in the back there are reproductions of Greek art. You can get an idea of how beautiful the statues are and vases. You know, that I went around to museums in different places and got permission that these works of art be reproduced.
What made you want to become an author?
I always wrote. When I was, when I was little, I wrote stories. I wanted to learn how to, I couldn't wait to go to school, and I asked somebody to teach me the alphabet so I could write stories. So I did that then. I wrote all the time when I was a kid. And then later I didn't, because when I grew up I had jobs and I didn't know what I wanted to write. But then when I started having kids, and I have three grandchildren, when my kids were born I started reading to them. I realized, oh, I've always wanted to write kids stories. That's what interests me. So that's the answer to that.
After she read us some more of the book, and Helen's husband, they won the war, and did Paris die?
I think so, but I'd have to go check at the end of the Iliad. Yeah, you know what? I honestly have to tell you that I think so, but I'm a little shaky on my facts here. In any case, since this all happened something like 1,000 or more years ago, he did die because he's not immortal. But whether or not he was killed in the war, I honestly am not sure, so I don't want to make up anything.
Do you have a special place where you write your books?
Yes, at my computer, in my little, where I lived, there was a tiny little room behind the kitchen where I have my computer. It's very nice, it's small, but I have lots and lots of books in there, and I have my computer in there, which only does word processing. It's not on the internet. My email is in another place. And that's where I work, and I find that when I'm not at home, it's very hard for me to write anything.
How many books did you read?
If you count, I've done a lot of different kinds of books. Picture books, translations from German, because I grew up, I wasn't born in America. And retellings and novels and middle grades and YA, young adult. I think it's like 52. But most people who write for young people who write children's books, they write a lot. So I know people who've done 100. So I think it's around 50, 51, or 53. I don't know. Okay, who hasn't asked anything before?
When did you start writing books?
Writing books. My first book, I started writing when my kids were born. My first book was a book called Sarah's Room, which I did with Maurice Sendak, whose work you probably know. And I wrote it one night when my kids weren't, they just went to bed or sleep early, and I suddenly had an idea, and I just wrote the whole thing that night. So that was, and they're old now. My kids are older than your parents. My kids are, like, my youngest kid is 40 years old. So it must have been about 42 years ago or something. Yeah. Well,
Another thing is, have you always had the feeling that you wanted to be an author,
well, I said before, I always wanted to write, but then, when I had jobs, I was very busy, and I didn't know what I didn't know what to write about, because I'm not a. Everyone that I knew who was an author was writing grown-up novels and things like that, and I didn't have that in me, so I didn't know that I was cut out to write for kids till my own kids came along.
Where did you get the name Zeus from?
That's his real name. That's what he was called, His name was Zeus, Z-U-S, Z-E-U-S, and in Roman mythology, his name is Jupiter. They're the same god. But something funny happened. I read this book to my granddaughter. She's in 5th grade out in Portland, Oregon, and she listened very hard. She loves it when you read her things. And at one point, I mispronounced. I got stuck. I did a tongue twister or something, and it came out Zeusy, not Zeus, but just Zeusy. And then we broke up laughing, and after that I just kept calling him Zeusy, but just to her. But his name is really Zeus. He's a major god in mythology.
I have two things to say. If you weren't writing books, what would you be doing now?
I'd be very sad, I'd be getting worried over my kids and bad things that are happening in their lives, and I'd worry over everything that's going on, and I wouldn't know what to. I'd be really bored because there's nothing else I really have wanted to do. You know, if I'm not writing something, I don't feel like I'm myself. And a lot of writers are that way.
What is your favorite book that you made?
That I've written? You know, that's a very hard question for authors to answer, but I've always felt that it's the one that I'm working on. It's the one that I'm writing right now, and I'm writing two. I'm doing a picture book with a really fantastically wonderful artist who does everything in great detail, and it's in Aesop's Fables, and there'll be full-colored pictures. I like that very much, but but the fables are very short, so I didn't get that involved with the characters in it. But I'm writing We Goddesses too, and I'm writing about 4 more goddesses, and I'm really excited about it because they are mother and daughter pairs. There's two mother and daughter pairs in this new book, and I'm half done, sort of. One is Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, and her mother is a goddess nobody knows a lot about, but she's very interesting. Her name is Leto. And the other 2 are very well known. They're Demeter, the goddess of grain, the goddess who makes everything in the world grow, and her daughter Persephone, who was stolen away from her, and you know, the god of the underworld took her away with him, and she has to be goddess of the underworld where the dead are for half the time. Anybody know that story? Well, you will. And the same artist is doing the pictures, and it's going to have the same look. You know, it's going to look like this. It'll just be a continuation. And so in a way, that's the one I'm working on, and that's the one that I love the most right now. How are we doing?
About time.
Do we have time for 3 more questions?
2 more, and then we should end it so that the
All right, two more questions. It's hard. 3 more. Come on, quick.
How long did it take? How long did it take to write your new book?
This one?
We Goddesses, yeah.
Oh, about between 2 and 3 years, I would say. Okay.
Why did you decide to write this book?
I decided to write this book because I remembered how I felt when I was a kid, and I wanted goddess stories, and I went to the library all the time, and all I could find is gods and heroes this and gods and heroes that, and had to look really, really hard for goddesses to even get mentioned. And there still hasn't been a book just about these goddesses, and then I wanted to be them, you know, so I made them talk in their own voices. Just one last, we have very fast.
What was the longest book you ever wrote?
The longest, the most numbers of pages? I don't know, but you know, I wrote a novel that tells about my childhood. I was a Jewish kid in Nazi Austria when Hitler came, you know, and it was really hard for the Jews to escape because he was out to kill everybody. And I wrote a novel about that, and it's called The Devil in Vienna, and I think that it may have the most number of pages. I don't know. But I wrote a novel for 5th graders that I don't see here, and that is, but you may find it in your library. It's called Nobodies and Somebodies. It's about 5th grade and kids in cliques and clubs, and you know, and kids not in them and how they all feel. So look for that. Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Well, I want to thank you for, you know, for listening and for participating in the play, and for being so nice to me. Thank you.
Yeah.